Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for joining us. We are back. I was on a long trip. Guys stayed busy. They got a bunch of stuff done. They got some soffit, they got fascia, they did some gable trims, they did some ceiling in the porch, wainscot, windows. Really just, they knocked off a bunch of the items that just had to get done in order for us to keep moving forward. And now that I'm back, we're gonna concentrate on this. You can see Zach is working on some framing. I'm gonna help him in a second. And so we can put the ceiling in this big pavilion porch. And then hopefully we'll get on the roof of this porch also. So let's get into it. 14, 8 1/8. That is my long to short. Now I gotta add 5 1/2 with a reverse 212 pitch. Or I could scrap it. Same diff, 3 1/2. I am probably long 1/8 of an inch, maybe.
I mean, I'm tight up here.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I think I can live with 1/8 of an inch, don't you?
Mm-hmm.
Greg, can you live with 1/8 of an inch?
Mm.
You've been living with that your whole life, I guess.
Oh, funny guy, Kyle. Funny guy.
Oh, we could have came this way, Zach. Probably. Okay. I'm gonna undo those screws. We're gonna suck that in tight. And we're gonna get that 1/8 of an inch. Like it? Okay, you go and get yours. I like it, man, as long as you like it up and down. Yikes. Let's just see if we're good, dude. If it's like nice and tight, then I actually cut off a little bit, Zach, because of gusset plates. So, you go ahead and get yours in there. Well, here, ready? 1, 2. Top. Hey, this thing don't care about gusset plates. You tell me.
Alright,
Go up the hill.
probably like me.
Okay, so here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go ahead and screw this then, and then I'll push it. Okay? How's that sound? Good thing I got this these new updated GRKs with the new updated bit, so I can do all this with one hand.
That's a good idea.
Isn't that awesome?
That's pretty cool, dude.
Thanks, GRK. Thanks for supporting the channel. And thanks for supporting the trades. All right, Zach, you ready?
Oh, too far. Yep.
Good?
Yep.
You ready? You like it?
Yep.
How's that for power, dude? Oh, we just got all that framing up there done in the porch ceiling, so that's ready to go. Basically what we did was we ran a framing member, a 2x12, through the middle there. You can see hanging off that bottom cord, or actually it's sitting on a hanger flush with the bottom cord. And then we ran some 2x6 rafters, just really for some extra something to screw into. What I don't want is, I don't want any wind coming and kind of moving the sheets there. So typically we're gonna do an 8-foot bay on our ceiling in our interiors, but out here you get weather and whatnot blowing around, so I thought let's just go ahead and add another, basically another rafter kind of in the middle, not really supporting much weight, just really holding things together. So I think that's gonna work out quite well. So next what we gotta do is run our trims around the perimeter, and then we should be able to start putting up some steel. See, whenever I put a trim in the corner, Greg, I go tight, but then I always bring it back just a hair.
Why is that?
That way I can tuck another piece in there, not too tight. Always think about the next guy, Greg.
Trying to give it a nice little flare. Nice little touch. Man, it's been so long since I've seen that movie.
So you can see here we've got this J channel, and that's a 7/8 J, which is a little bit smaller than our standard J channel because we only want our rib of steel to go in there and be nice and tight. And I probably should go over sometime why we use two different J channels. It's pretty atypical, not a lot of people do it, and I don't understand why they just use a standard J channel. But basically we're gonna put this J channel up, run our steel into it, and then for this little bit of steel right here, we'll run another J channel. So we'll do a double J. Really, it was just for a consistent look, but I think you'll see when it gets done, it's gonna look pretty good with this ceiling in here. Well, believe it or not, I think my microphone must have died on me because I've got no sound for the rest of this video, at least no sound from the job site. So I'll just kind of tell you what we're doing. We're punching our ceiling steel. We've got it all laid out. We know the measurements of all of our framing that we want to screw to, so we're going to punch it here on the ground, and that is going to make it so much easier because as you can see, when working with steel above your head, it's just pretty cumbersome. So even with 3 guys, these sheets are 24 foot long, I do believe, and having those punch holes makes it so much easier to know exactly where your screws are going, and it makes a perfect straight line. Something to note here that I would tell you is when you're doing a ceiling, we've got a J channel on the left side that we put the steel in, and you'll see that kind of on every sheet. We'll put it in one side and make sure you come in at an angle and then lift the other side up. And the reason for that is if you have 2 J channels on each end, your steel has to either be shrunk and then expanded, or you have to bend it and get it in on both sides. And we find it much easier to do a mini angle trim on the right side, which is basically a reverse painted like eave trim of sorts. So it's just a L shape and it tucks in the corner. Our steel goes up tight to it, and it basically just looks finished until we put a piece of J channel over that for our side steel. So hopefully that makes sense. You can see it a little bit better here. We put the one in on my side, get it in the J channel, and then just push up tight, and it gives it a nice finished look that you'll never see any of that white house wrap when you look up in that crack once we J channel it. So basically we're just going to go ahead and run all this ceiling steel, Another thing you'll note is that typically we start on one side and work to the other side, but when there's a pitched ceiling like this, we're going to start in the peak and work our ways out. That way we can assure that we have a nice, crisp, straight line dead center in the peak. Now this piece is always a little bit tricky, but the bigger they are, the actual easier they are, because you can flex it a little bit more to get it in all the different J channels as you're finishing. Because if you've never done this, you've got to get the J channel on my side and the J channel on the long side, all while getting it in the rib and lapping it properly. So now that we're done with that, one side, we can start going the other way. You can see I'm struggling just a little bit, and that's because we've got a miter coming together at that peak where those two J channels came together, and there's a little bit of pressure because we're kind of shoving that rib up in there where it's tight, and getting two ribs into that 7/8 J can be a little bit of a struggle. But I like using the 7/8 J because it does make it nice and tight versus the 1-inch J channel that we use around windows and doors. It just looks a little bit loose and, in my opinion, not as clean. Now for this sheet, it starts to get real because we just added 11 feet to the steel piece, or the steel length. So now we're like 35 foot long, and we had to rip the last 11 foot in half about, because that's where it transitions around the main section of the building and goes back to the garage. Now, something to note here is this is going to tell you how square everything is running, because when you make that cut, if it ain't running perfect, then it's either going to be too tight way down in the back corner, or it's going to be gapped, and then you know that something is not right. Lucky for us, or I guess just to say we prepared, we didn't have that issue. Everything went perfect, and now we can get one long 35 footer installed, and then we've got to do our rip. But this took a little bit of back and forth because they were so long. We had to kind of help each other and make sure it was right where we wanted it. So if you're not holding the steel perfect, or you're not, keeping it tight and you're letting it sag around, it can throw off the dimension and tweak a little bit. And then when you put your screws in, it can oil can. And as you look at the ceiling, there's no oil can. It's just absolutely awesome, and you'll see it here very shortly. I love a good flat ceiling. I don't mean flat in a sense that this is actually a raised cord, but just smooth and clean looking. So here you go. This is the finished product. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that episode. Thank you for sticking around, and hopefully you will come back. So make sure you hit that subscribe button. Smash the like button if you would. Drop me any comments, and we'll catch you on the next video.